is my final video in the B-tree series, and here I'm going to be talking about deletion from a top-down B-tree. So I'm going to break that into two parts. The first part's going to be descending the tree. And of course, descending a tree, if you're just searching, is easy. It's not so different than descending within a binary search tree. You look at a node, you look at the keys within a node and use them to determine which child you need to go through, and then you go down the tree, right? If we're doing an insertion in a top-down tree, during our descending phase, it's not so different, except we never step into a node that's full. If we're about to step into a node that's full, we preemptively split that node and make it two non-full nodes so that we can go down the tree, never stepping into a full node. And similarly for deletion, we're going to descend the tree, never stepping into a minimal sized node. We're never going to step into a node if it has the minimum legal number of keys, excluding the root. We make an exception for the root. We can step into the root even if it has only one key. That's going to be okay. But besides the root, never step into a minimal sized node. We'll talk about how to do that. And after we do that, the only other thing we need to do is actually how to delete the key. And again, we go back to a binary search tree. For a binary search tree, if we're deleting from a leaf, it's really easy. You just delete it. If you're deleting from a node that has only one child, well, you take that child, it moves up and takes the place of the node that you're deleting. No problems. And if you have a binary tree, well, then you replace the deleted value. You replace it with its successor value, deleting the successor from wherever it was before. And we note that the successor can only have at most one child. It's either in a leaf or it has only one child. Otherwise, it can't be the successor of the node that's being deleted. Okay. So what's the difference? Well, in a B tree, first of all, you can never have a node with just one child. That's never going to happen. And instead of talking about binary nodes, we're going to talk about, well, this is what happens when you delete a node, a key from an inner node, right? You have an inner node and you're deleting a key from that. Well, we know that the successor will for sure be in a leaf. And we can actually use, just like in a binary search tree, if we really wanted to, we could use a successor or a predecessor. But we know that that value is always going to be in a leaf. Right. So first, let's talk about descending the tree. Okay, we imagine, I'm going to draw some pictures where I say, oh, we're somewhere in the tree. In this case, we're in this top node of the tree, which might be some levels down within the tree. And we always have t equal 4, meaning we're always required to have at least 3 keys in any node just to be legal. But in descending, we're never going to step into a node if it has fewer than 4 nodes, right? So a node can have 3 keys, but we're going to just sort of use this extra requirement. We're never going to step into a 3-key node, okay? So in this case, I'm at this node. I have 120. I'm going to step into this child, and I look, the child has 4 keys. Great. That's really easy to do. I just step in and then figure out which child to go from. Okay, 120 is bigger than 100, less than 123. This is the next child. Hey, I've descended one level of the tree in this really easy case. Hey, no problems. What happens if I want to descend and I look at a node and it's actually already minimal? It's only got 3 values in it. Well, in this case, what I do is I check the neighbors. I could check the left neighbor or the right neighbor. In this case, I look at the right neighbor and I say, hey, look, I have a right neighbor, and that right neighbor is not minimal. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do a rotation. It's going to look sort of like the rotations that we showed in the 2-3 tree video, right? In this case, the 145 value, we're going to move down. 145. Going to come down here. The 167 value is going to come up here, 167, and then we end up hanging this subtree off of a different node from before, because this value E was bigger than 145, less than 167. Well, of course, it's also less than 167 and greater than 145. So we just do a rotation, and now the node that we want to step into, hey, is no longer minimal. There we go. That's what it looks like after the rotation is done. No problems. Okay. We step into the node because now it's not minimal. We keep on going down. So our third case is going to be, look, I want to step into this node. It's minimal in size, but so are both of its siblings. Well, in this case, what we're going to do is, look, I grab a sibling, and I grab a sibling, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine this node with its minimal sibling. And I know that I can do that because I know this node's minimal, meaning it has t minus 1 keys. This node over here is minimal. It has t minus 1 keys. I'm allowed to have up to 2 t minus 1 keys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this key that separated them. I'm going to put it down here, 167. Sort of combine all these things into one big leaf. Now, of course, like that. Now, of course, I no longer have two children here, so I don't want to have this. I don't want to have this. I have two children turned into one child, and then I'm going to end up getting something that looks like, wow, that looks like this. Okay, that was a little bit messy, but the 167 was ripped out of the parent node, came down and joined up with two children node. Each of the two children node had three keys. Now we have a node that's 7 keys. That's allowed. We're allowed to have values up to 7. Now we know that we can rip that 167 out of the parent because the parent wasn't minimal. The parent had at least 1 extra key, right? The parent didn't have 3 keys. It had to have at least 4 keys, and because that, it had 1 key that we could take out while not breaking our B-tree rules. Okay, so there. We've moved down another level, and again, we're sort of done. That's how you traverse down the tree. If we know how to step into a non-minimal node, we know how to step into a minimal node with a non-minimal neighbor, and we know how to step into a minimal node without a non-minimal neighbor, then we can always step down in the tree. Great, so now we know how to descend. Now we're going to come back to our deletion. We'll clean this up a little bit. We say, look, if we're deleting from a leaf, that's great. We're just going to delete it, especially because we know the leaf is not going to be minimal because we wouldn't have stepped into it if it was minimal. And if we're deleting from an inner key, we're going to replace that key value with a successor or a predecessor value from the subtrees, okay, to keep it structural place within the tree. And in the case of a B-tree, the predecessor and the successor must always, always, always be in a leaf. They can't be anywhere else. There are no nodes with only one child within a B-tree, okay? So here we go. We imagine, look, I say I'm deleting 123 from this leaf node. The leaf node can't be minimal because I've stepped into it. Hey, get rid of it. No problems. Life should always be so easy. What happens next? Well, next I imagine I'm deleting 167 from this node, from this inner node, and one of 167's sort of 2 direct descendant keys, the one that's the value is directly less than 167 but bigger than 75, or the one's greater than 167 but less than 304, one of those 2 roots has a non-minimal sized node, okay? So in this case, I look at 167's predecessor rooted subtree. Oh, that's going to be this node. That node is not minimal. So what I do is I say, great, I want to find that predecessor. And I'm going to just keep on stepping down in the tree as if, rather than deleting 167, I'm going to delete 167's predecessor. Oh, in this case, 167's predecessor comes from this child. Let's imagine that the predecessor has value 155. Eventually I make my way down to a leaf. I delete 155 from that leaf, and I use it to take 167's place. Since I already saw how to delete from a leaf, that's great. Everything's fine. The last case is, what happens if I want to delete from a node, like 167 in this case? I want to delete key 167, and I want to delete that even though neither of the two trees, its predecessor tree, nor its successor tree, neither of them is non-minimal. They're both minimal. Well, in that case, just like before, I'm going to take the 167 value, I'm going to move it down in the tree, and I'm going to merge these two nodes. And turn these into one big thing. I'm going to take 167 out. I'm going to get rid of both these. I'm going to make it a single link down here. And now, that's what I have. And now, great. I moved 167 down, and it's lower in the tree. So as long as I can always tell you how to get one level lower in the tree, we're pretty much done. And that's what we've done here. I can delete from a node if it has sort of a non-minimal successor or predecessor, and I can also move it down if it doesn't have if both its successor and predecessor are rooted at sort of these minimal sized nodes, then I can move it down. Now I continue. 167, who knows? Maybe it gets pushed down. Maybe it gets pushed down again. If D and E are both minimal nodes, it would be pushed down again. Okay. Now note, when you do deletion, of course, most of the items are in fact in the leaves, right? I mean, in a B tree, almost all of the items are in the leaves, a very high percentage. The higher your branching factor T is, the higher your percentage of values in the leaves. And what happens here is you get a single pass down the tree to do your deletion if the value you're deleting is in a leaf. If it's not in a leaf, you still have sort of a single pass down the tree plus one swap back to that top node that has a value being deleted to replace the value with its predecessor or successor. Finally, the one thing I didn't mention is what about the root? I said you can step into a non-empty root. Look, when you're doing these traversal down the tree and deletion, traversal down the tree, occasionally you go to your parent node and rip a key down from it, right? And you know you can do that because we know that our parent node, we wouldn't have stepped into it to begin with if it was minimal. So it always has an extra key, okay? Now, the root node, what happens if you rip a key out of it? Well, it's sort of fine. As long as it has at least one key left, the root is allowed to have down to one key. But what happens if you rip the last key out of the root? Now you have an empty root. That's fine. The height of your tree just shrank by 1. That's how the tree actually can shrink in height. Okay, that's how you do B-tree deletion. Thank you.